And welcome to the Halo Effect Real Estate Show with Dedee Harper, aka the Real Estate Angel, helping you put wings to your dreams.
Miss Dedee, Real Estate Angel, what's going on in the times and lives of the real estate moguls?
This week was a busy week. You know, we have the down payment assistance programs that's really popping in the real estate world. So basically, you can actually purchase a home with $500 down if you're qualified for the down payment assistance. So that has been really busy. And that Jacksonville has just received more funding, as well as we have state funding available for down payment assistance. And actually, some people think that they can't purchase because their income may be high, but you can make up to $60,000-ish for one person and still qualify. So it's a really good program, and if you don't have your down payment assistance money, you probably want to try that program. So that's been really good this week.
So there's somebody driving right now. They were heading to the Avenues Mall or the St. Augustine outlets, and they were going to spend $500 on something. You're telling me and you're telling Jacksonville that $500 could possibly go to a new home for somebody.
Yes, it definitely could. The difference with the down payment assistance program, normally they want at least a 640 middle credit score. For just the FHA, you can get it for as low as 580 credit score. So, give me a call, because that is really going on, and it's good when Jacksonville can receive funding for that as well.
All right. That's some great tidbit of info. Let's get into the topic for today. For everyone who's listening, this is going to be a very impactful show. We're really going to dig into something very, very significant. Today's topic is building your business to take care of the future you. So we're speaking to you 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 40, 50, 60, and more. We're talking to that person and how to prepare to build your business and your life for that future person. So we have a very special guest.
Yes.
Vancille Levine. She is a licensed clinical social worker and bereavement specialist at Haven Hospice for advanced care planning, and specializes in determining how decisions you make now affect your future later in life.
Yes, and the reason I wanted to bring Vancille Levine on the show is because Vancille is always important in just helping me keep matters straight for my future. I always talk about, we plan for our future, we do things for our future, and there is actually free programs that can help us, take care of that so we don't have to worry. So I'll share my story with what happened to me yesterday. I normally don't like talking about this on the air, but it just puts things in perspective of why we need to definitely have things taken care of for our future. So my son is in Houston, and he was involved with a robbery of the Loomis trucks, the armored trucks. He was coming out of Popeyes, and he was asking the driver to move his truck, and someone came from behind his car with 3 masks, and they killed the robber of the truck. So, and he actually witnessed all of that, and they probably was shooting at him as well. So they robbed the driver of that armored truck, as well as, killed the driver. So we send prayers out for that family, for that lost their loved ones.
Absolutely.
In that tragedy in Houston. And we just pray for that family. And I just thank God that my son wasn't harmed, but, I'm sure it may have an impact on him. But that just went to, just brought things into reality for me, as well as why we should definitely have things planned and ready for our future. So I am so glad to have Vancille on the show. It's like it fell into place. And she's an awesome friend and an awesome speaker as well. So welcome, Vancille.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Jacksonville. I'm so sorry that happened with family. And I love the topic. I love the reality that you can get some permanence in this life if you set down some roots. So it's really beneficial when you think about those basic life needs.
Yes.
Shelter, food, clothing, and shelter being the principal thing to go for. So I support anybody that wants to set down roots. And if there are programs available and decisions you can make now that could affect you 10 years from now in such a positive way. So I'd love for our people out there in Jacksonville to take advantage. And there are some other things we can talk about in relation to preparing for your finish. Yeah. So your finish can be strong.
I'm around some powerful women in this room. I'm sure y'all feel it as well out there. So you know what? Let's jump into it. And on even a lighter note, let's look at I have a business decision that I would want you all to entertain yourselves with. So some of you all, if you are on social media or, you know, this kind of went viral, but there's an actor by the name of Jason Weaver. And for those who may be familiar, he was in the Jackson 5 made-for-TV movie series. So he was Michael Jackson in his teenage years. And he was actually the voice for Simba in The Lion King. Yeah, so this was a decision. He was 15 years old. And ironically, I actually knew him being from Chicago. We went to the same church. But at 15, he got the role as Simba in The Lion King. He sung all of the songs. And he was offered either $2 million flat, take that, and that's it, from Disney, or just royalties that he would get for as long as the movie generated revenue.
Wow.
And his first royalty check would be $100,000. So it's $2 million. Yeah, all of that.
All at once.
Do what you do.
Ready.
Ready, set, ready to go with it, or $100,000. So I want to ask you all, what would, and those listening, I want you to even think about what would you do, and how would you, you know, you got your future self that you can look out for. You got your current self right now that can have $2 million in the bank
right now.
Yeah.
Vasil, Dedee, what would you all do with that?
I think it definitely depends on my age. So if you ask me now, I definitely would go with an annuity plan, and that's when you receive payments for a payment period. But if I'm older, then sometimes you probably would say, I'll just take it all now. So it just depends. And, you know, we talked about, I don't want to act out of desperation. So a lot of people will probably look at, oh, it depends on my situation that I'm in at the moment as well. But in today, I probably would go with the annuity plan where I would take payments every month.
Okay. All right. We got one vote for the annuity. So they got this big old
$2 million, but yeah, I would go with the annuity. And
so
that's
they're ripping
from
the
my
check.
term.
They're ripping the check, and they're saying, "Go ahead, you got the."
Yes. Now the part of now, you know, for real, I'm going to ask them to negotiate, and I know that's not part of the question. Can I get half? And then you set the other up in annuity, but I know that's not the question, so I'll stick with the answer to the question.
So you're going to have Olivia Pope with you to negotiate.
Yes, I would want to negotiate.
And a Johnny Cochran-esque.
Yes, and that's really what I used to do at Merrill Lynch, working the annuity department. So, and just from having that experience in finance, I would probably most likely go with the annuities.
Okay. What about yourself, Vasil?
I think I'm going to take the $2 million.
And
the reason I take the $2 million is because the story we just talked about, that things are so fleeting, and not from a gloom and doom perspective, but if I could take care of some things right then, I would want to. The annuity sounds fantastic because you can't really project what's going to happen. You can look at the what ifs, you can study the market, but if I have this $2 million, then I can be in control of how I want to invest that.
Very true.
How I would want to take care of some things, not all the cousins and the aunties.
Okay.
But if I wanted to take care of some things and then learn some investment strategies, then I'd have it right then, because you're not promised tomorrow. And it's appreciated that this young brother had this opportunity. And so somebody that might have thought something as small as, and it'll go into it can segue into what we're talking about. You have to take the first step. Think about, he got to a place where he was the voice of Simba, but he had to first see the ad, go to the audition, and then sing before he could get to the place where it was $2 million or royalties. So we'll be talking about some of that today too.
He did.
He had to plan that out. So, and what was his option, and what did he do?
So what he did, he chose the annuity. and his mother more so. So props to his mom for having that foresight, because a 15-year-old kid is gonna get all the candy out the candy store. But she made that decision, and over, that was 25 years ago. So now he's 40, and he still gets a check to this day. So when a lot of entertainers' careers could have fizzled, and they're out. He has that, and I think what's so powerful, they looked at it from the end game, and I think in business, a lot of times you want to project what your cash flow can be, and if you build the right type of business, it is something that will pay out on and on and on. So with Disney being $1 billion company, he got that 2 million, but he will surpass that. And to your point, Vasil, there is a lot that you can do with a lump sum in today, because $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. But when you have an income stream like that, and I think with cash flow, one of the definitions of financial independence is when your passive income can exceed your personal expenses.
Yes. And
so
that's
probably
what we all strive to do.
Yeah, and
I just strive to do in business.
Yeah, and I even immediately with that annuity, if it was 100,000, even if it tanked out to like maybe 20,000 after a couple of years, every year, every 6 months, 20,000 at the minimum should be able to cover your personal expenses. So now you're good for, and that's not just his life. His kids will continue to get that payment. Yeah. His kids, as long as there's a Lion King, he'll get that. So there's no right or wrong a lot of times, but there's some very good decisions, and as you all said, planning is key. And calculating. Yes. So let's jump into building a business to take care of this future you, and that was a good example of it. But I'll bring up an example. Some of us may have heard about this FaceApp.
Okay.
And when we think about planning for our future you, a lot of times we're older. So this FaceApp, you're able to upload a picture, and it will show what you'll look like in 20 years or 40 years or when you're older in your 80s.
Right.
And I did it. I didn't like the way I looked. They had me all wrinkled up. They had me.
I never did it.
They had me looking like the Hobbit.
I don't even want to see it.
So, Vasil, I'll ask, a lot of times we don't want to think that far out. And when it comes to the end of life care, we're like, no, I'm fly. I'm walking. I'm feeling good, looking good. I don't want to sit in that space. And I know, just even for anyone who saw that app, it could be funny, you send it here, but a lot of us deleted that app. Yeah. A lot of us are not looking at it. We deleted the picture that it produced, and we don't really want to face that. So
I was one that did not want to see it. I never even touched that app. But to say that, one thing I like about Bonsil and the business is when I used to think of Haven Hospice, I only thought of the fact of somebody is close to death, maybe 3 to 6 months. That's the only thing I thought about when I heard that word, hospice. But I come to know that it's so much that hospice offer for us today, even if we pass, 50 years or 70 years from now, that's free. And that's why it was so important for me to bring her on the show. Not to even mention she's such an excellent motivator and speaker, and that's what she does. But just so she can bring it to reality, so we can take at least one day, even if it's 2 hours, to take care of that. We never have to look at it again, and we can give that over to hospice, and it's free. So
thank you, Dedee. Want to go back to the annuity comparison, and what you do today affects later, even with the app. Getting a glimpse of what the future could be. One of the things we don't do a lot of in our society is consider later. We are very right now. But if the word has said that we get better as we age, that there's wisdom that comes from the days that we live, that God has even said, I know your days are numbered, but we have a difficult time taking ownership and engaging in that. But I like to think of it in decades. You got your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And if I'm in my 40s, let me take some time to consider what could happen with me a decade from now. What do I need to do now in my thinking? We talked about Simba. First and foremost, Simba had to say, oh, I can sing. Oh, I just can't wait to be king. He had to learn the lyrics to the song
Mm-hmm.
before he was even given opportunity to make millions. So it takes those little steps. So it's going to start with even making the decision to consider this. What are you thinking about? A lot of times in families, we don't recognize when our loved ones age because we just see them. A lot of times if you're out of town, like you talk about being from Chicago, if your family of origin is in Chicago, you talking to them on the phone and they sound like everything's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go see them, they taking a long time to stand up just to go from one chair to the next.
That's very true.
Or they might be staying in the recliner chair and they might have a little pad there because they've had some piddles
Mm-hmm.
because it's hard to get to the bathroom. So I'm saying this to Jacksonville. Please take the time to consider what's going to happen later. How do I want to finish? You're going to have your evening time and then you're going to have your sunset.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't always know when it's time to engage certain end-of-life tasks. We're talking about business. To all the entrepreneurs out there that are taking that risk, taking those first steps, second steps, third steps, to make sure that they're giving themselves the opportunity. They recognize their value. Like I'm really recognizing my value. I'm in my decade of grace, the 50s. So it's my grace decade.
Golden.
So, so I'm appreciating all of the knowledge I've learned from the 20s, 30s, and the 40s.
I feel like I'm talking to a 30-year-old. Somebody
and
in
I'm cute.
they prime. Yeah. Naturalista.
but really, for the sake of the audience to hear this, if you don't take anything else away from this, just like you would take the time as an entrepreneur to take time to build in and invest in yourself, consider the later. Consider the decisions that you make and take those first steps. When it comes to the evening time of life, for all of you out there that are in your 20s, your 30s, and you're doing it, if you've got parents, if you've got aunties, if you've got uncles, cousins who are older, that generation, that foundational generation, paying attention to what changes you see, then you'll know it's time to do some things, to make some decisions. Dedee talked about me having worked a full career with a hospice provider. And in my household, we talk a little differently because I have such an appreciation for a strong finish.